Whakalofo atu, Pomarie, happy Christmas, happy New Year. Really great, and I'm so glad to hear that you guys are still here and you're still with us and we're pumping up strongly. Just wanted to have this, one of the first videos that we've had of the year, to describe what I was looking through over the report from the Transforming Justice Working Group. Last month, the government has said that they have now implemented a couple of the changes, and they are promising to implement more of these transformative changes as well. So I thought it'd be a good idea to have a look through the report as well. Many of us just don't have time. Now, the report and the working group cost you approximately $620,000, and what they came up with was what we have seen more and more of in this idea of a progressive environment. I'll go straight to it because a very good friend has said, oi, keep it simple, just keep it simple. So I'll do my best to keep it simple, and I'll read off some of the elements of what we have here as well. We are, of course, living in the time where over the Christmas break we had the government sneakily push through bills and start the public submission process while all of us were on holiday and concentrate on our family and our friends and having downtime. So we do know very well that the tricks of this particularly non-transparent, transparent, non-honest, honest, non-open, open, non-kind government are and is. So we will keep up to date with what's going on there. Excuse me, got a bit of a dryness though. Right. The name of the report is called Turuki Move Together. It is labelled as Transforming Our Criminal Justice System. Second report of Te Uipu Hapai I Te Ora Safe and Effective Justice Advisory Group. Now the group itself was made up of, I believe, 9 people. 2 of the members resigned just before they gave out this report. One of them was Jared Gilbert, the gang expert, and the other was a gentleman who was part of the Independent Police Authority. These were 2 very big hitters in terms of credibility, authenticity, and the fact that they resigned is pretty big news. Of course, you had one of the other people there who was very much an academic and in the grievance industry, actually said it was fine, Pākehā, well represented everywhere else. So there was even an element of racism in her comments around these 2 going. Now that is really big because of course now the group is made up of 7 members. The majority of them are academics. You then have lawyers, and then you've got one person, another person sort of, but one person, Ruth Money, who's in the front line advocating, assisting victims, and there is one other person who's been counselling for quite a few years, also happens to be partially a journalist as well, but the majority of them academics, which we know we've seen from all the time. So I thought we'd just go very briefly, executive summary, and just go through some elements to that. I'll read reasonably fast. You can't stop me because this is not a live interaction. Okay, here we go. Te Uipu Hapai I Te Ora was tasked with leading public discussion to develop proposals that address the failures of our criminal justice system. Over the past year, we've listened to many voices, canvassed a broad range of ideas, spoken to experts, and reviewed other reports in justice-related sectors. Our report, He Waka Roimata, reflected what we heard during many hui we held around New Zealand. People told us they have no confidence in the current criminal justice system. They want urgent, transformative change. Now, they described a system which is failing to help those who are harmed, failing to stop harm and reoffending, failing Māori, racist, culturally blind and culturally biased, failing to meet diverse needs, confusing and alienating, costly, especially in terms of the loss of human potential. And yada, 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 yada. It goes on basically saying, oh, there's a trumpet sound and, ooh, humanity, dignity, respect and compassion. In this report, we set out values and principles which can provide that direction. These are values that emphasize the inherent worth of all people and communities, connections between us, and the importance of maintaining and restoring balance in all relationships, and of caring for and supporting one another. Blah, 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 blah. Our recommendations fall under 3 headings: commit, empower, and transform. Now, commit. Recommendation 1, political accord, the establishment of a cross-party parliamentary accord for transformative justice. Okay, I'm sort of okay with it. That's sort of fine. You know, we all want to have something which everyone can look to and attain the success of our people, the safety factor. Recommendation 2, by Māori, for Māori, that the government establish a mana ōrite, equal power, governance model under which Māori and Crown agencies share in justice sector decision making as recommended by Inaia Tonu. Now I've got a massive issue here. First off, huge issue. Under the tiriti or waitangi, that is not supposed to be. Every single human being, every single person in New Zealand comes under one code, one rules. We're all the same, we're all equal. That is under the Treaty of Waitangi. There was never supposed to be different jurisdictions, different areas. That makes no sense whatsoever. I will also say this, there's no such thing as this weird partnership that came up 30, 35 years ago. So this is a problem, because any time you treat one race, one group of people, whether it's by sexual orientation, whether it's by belief system, whatever, if you change someone's different legislated standing in society, you are asking for a lot of trouble. It does not work, and it has not worked anywhere in the world. It is actually really dangerous for the group being treated differently and all the rest of the people, and the idea of a cohesive unity. It's foolish, and it will be hurtful to our people. Now, interestingly enough, there are footnotes throughout this report, so I decided to have a look at those footnotes. In this particular one, it states, Māori and Crown agencies share in justice sector decision making as recommended by Inaia Tonu. So I had a look at Inaia Tonu, and effectively that came from something called Hui Māori. So they're trying to state that, hey, look, we are putting this in place because of some strong area that has empirical data and observance, and it happens to be through Inaia Tonu, and it happens to be this Hui Māori, which means nearly zip, because you can just go to any group of people, give them a fancy title, and then when you're coming to your report, you say, oh, wow, it came from this particular document that was written by this particular sector of group, which had this particular political leaning towards doing what they want. It's irresponsible. It's not empirical data that looks at the facts. Transfer power and resources to Māori communities so they can design and develop Māori-led responses to offending and to tamariki and whānau well-being. Oh, what's that? Again, apart from treating one group of people different from every other person, now what you're doing is you're going to say that you've got jurisdictional rights over a certain group of people, and the rest of the people can get stuffed. Because that's roughly what this is saying. That again is problematic. It is not part of an equal society. And this is where we start to get into some real scary areas. We've seen co-governance being pushed in terms of the water bill being proposed. We've seen co-governance in terms of the Tupuna Maunga Authority. We're seeing it also in some other areas right now. There's a bill that is about to come out, which is going to push it even more so. We must be equal. The Treaty of Waitangi, it is a beautiful document. And Articles 1 and then 3 is the idea of equality. Equality. This is not equality. This is discrimination. Legislated. I've been fighting about the whole idea that there is no such thing as institutional racism. Currently that is correct. There is no such thing as institutional racism. None. But bringing these laws in institutes racism. And I say that as Te Atiawa Ngāti Raukawa, a Tongan, Niue, and English person. I love it. Anyway, make tikanga Māori and te ao Māori values central to the operation of the justice system. Well, what does that mean? Te ao Māori. Are you talking about Te Arawa? Are you talking about Ngāti Raukawa? Are you talking about, if we go to Ōtautahi and we look at Ngai Tahu, do we take their ao and do we apply that to the rest? Or is it cut up? Or is it hapu? Or is it iwi? Or is it by rohe, as in region, family, tribe, sub-tribe? What does that even mean? Is there a form somewhere that states this is te ao Māori? Doc, 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 doc. I guarantee you there will be none. It's not there. Papakura. Now, the next one coming up is recommendation 3, invest in transformation. That the government prioritise investment in community-led transformative justice. Now, partially, this is okay if you're looking at the ideas of NGOs and bringing in some of their rehabilitation type of work and their assistance programs. Where it's not okay, because later on in this report, they want it to be removing prisons and making them to be community facilities in the community themselves. That I have a massive issue with. Some people need to be locked up. Recommendation 4, whole of government. That the government basically says for the government to do everything, to be of one accord. Okay, no problem to a particular point, but again, we have issues there in terms of forcing and instituting discrimination and racism by one group of people over other groups of people, rather than having one equal umbrella. E pluribus unum, the US motto, from the many one. The idea that you can be all types of ethnicities, all types of belief structures, all types of ideologies, but you come under one system. It's fair. Fair. And then there's empower, which is always nice. People who are harmed, communities, children, families, whānau. It's the usual sort of stuff, and some of it's pretty really good. Then we come to the transform, and this is actually a big problem. Recommendation 8, racism. That racism be challenged within the justice system and throughout Aotearoa, New Zealand society, with more diverse recruitment and more effective training in the justice system, as well as school programs, media campaigns, and law changes. That's a lot of money, taxpayer money. Now, when you say about Aotearoa, New Zealand, well, it's the name of our country is New Zealand. Now, in different settings, I am all good to call New Zealand Aotearoa, or to call it New Zealand, or Nusila, or Sinsinlan, or anything else, depending on the setting. But this weird push to change the names of our nation and parts of our nation just because you want to push your own agenda is disgraceful. That's disgraceful. And doing it in a sneaky, dodgy way, is I don't like that at all. The other part, with more diverse recruitment, that's quotas. That's quotas. Then we get into this area where we're saying, hey, you know, the skin color, your skin color, well, can we bring you into recruitment? Depends on what color you are. Hey, depends on which part of the alphabet you are. We've got very strong areas where in order to get rainbow ticks, you have to be very much alphabet focused, LGBTQIA+. And so this is actually not going for the best person for the job. It's just going for whatever property you may have. It is identity politics. It is racist. It is sexist, misogynistic, misandrist. It is everything that the left accuse people of. The left's very own mechanisms are, by definition, horrifically bad in terms of being those. So racism, they are being some of the most horrible forms of identity politics that you can find. That if your skin color is a little bit whiter than mine, sorry mate, points off. Get stuffed. It's not how it should be. The best person for the job, and it should always be the best person for the job, whether you male, female, bi, trans, believe in Allah, believe in God, believe in nothing, whatever. Best person for the job. Recommendation 9. Mental health and trauma, that the government address access to culturally informed trauma recovery, mental health services, and adopt trauma-informed approaches throughout the justice system, including in all training policies and practices. Again, what does that actually look like? How much is that going to cost? And does that mean that someone who is a data entry person or someone who is trying to engage in a back office support, do they have to do it as well? Your role should be dictating your training. I don't get some of this sort of stuff. And then, of course, they're trying to push that into the schools as well. Anyway, recommendation 10, alcohol and other drugs, that the government strengthen regulation of alcohol, legalize and regulate personal use of cannabis, and consider that for all drugs, treating personal drug use as a health issue with more funding towards prevention, education, and treatment. Again, the whole political push by this government, your desires and what you care about in terms of your whānau and the ideas around that aren't as important as what the left want. The left are truly pushing for THC to be commercialized, to be legalized. They are pushing for some of the most ruthless forms of diversity that you can find. At the same time, by the way, this is the same side who actually want to kill off baby New Zealanders, the unborn, even allowing it up until birth. There's a lot to speak about that, but we can speak about it later on. So there's a very much a clear and blatant political leaning here. And it, the idea of it being about justice is not really there. Recommendation 11, rehabilitation, significantly increased investment in rehabilitation programs, greatly expanded access to rehabilitation opportunities for all prisoners, including those on remand and serving short sentences, gradual replacement of most prisons with community-based rehabilitation centres. Gradual replacement of most prisons with community. Your place, your hood. Community-based rehabilitation centres. No. Some people need to be in prison. Some people do. Some people need a short, sharp shift into fair prison as well. You can't say that. Bro, yup. If you spend a bit of time in there and you do not want to go back, sweet, don't go back. Strengthening wrap-around reintegration services that meet basic needs and provide ongoing rehabilitation support for prisoners returning to the community. Cool. Recommendation 12, this is the last one. Justice processes, that criminal investigation and court procedures be redesigned to make them consistent with transformative justice values and principles. This means ensuring everyone is treated fairly and equitably, with humanity, dignity, respect and compassion. Those who cause harm are accountable. Restoration of mana to all is supported. We recommend the following interim reforms: reviewing youth, specialist and therapeutic courts and applying learnings across the court system, reviewing laws and guidelines for sentencing, the pre-trial period, whether in custody or on bail, post-release reintegration to ensure consistency with our values and principles. Now this one gets me really concerned. Strengthening and increasing access to alternative justice processes. What is that? These changes will lead to a positive and fair justice system which prevents further harm wherever possible, restores mana where harm occurs, and ensures that all New Zealanders who come into contact with the system are affected positively. Alternative justice processes. Make no mistake, every word in this is very carefully chosen and selected. So when they say alternative justice processes, what is that? Now, I've gone to Rangatahi Court a few times. Now that's where the court procedures for young people are held at a marae. Love it, awesome, no problem. Why? Because The law is maintained, the charges are maintained, it's still under one system. It just looks, it's in a different setting. And I've got no problem with that. Got no problem with the Pacific Court. Same reason. The code of laws is still the same. There's no difference in that. It only looks different. The setting is different. Still a judge, still police, still charges, still lawyers, still advocates, still public sitting area. But if we're starting to look at alternative justice processes, what does that mean? Does that mean that you will have a type of justice occurring where iwi have more of a say? Or if you are, as long as you're not white anyway, but if you can sort of say, oh, well, you know, that somehow your iwi has jurisdictional priority over the law of New Zealand, is that what is meant by alternative justice processes? Or does it mean something else? Does it mean that if a man goes and rapes or kills a child, and then when it comes to court they say, well, actually I'm a woman, I'm a girl, then they get sent to female prison? Is that what is meant by alternate justice processes? We need those. We need to understand what that means, because we have already seen some real worrying things. Now, I won't take up too much more of your time. It's been about 20 minutes already. I'll just really break through a few different things in this particular report. Now, again, I want to remind, the reason why this report is really important is because the Minister of Justice and the Ministry of Justice itself has already promised that they're going to implement a lot of this. And not only that, they've said that they've already implemented, I believe, 2 aspects of it. So this is what they are doing. So don't be surprised when these things come up. And it's important for us to all know, fully aware of this honest, transparent, kind government. So, a little bit of wording. Victims and offenders in words. During our public conversations, there were many discussions about language and how the language we use frames our thinking about these issues. We recognize the need for a new lexicon to talk about a new kind of system that seeks to heal rather than harm. For example, some terms commonly used in prisons, such as muster, are dehumanizing. The labels victims and offenders are internalizing and disempowering. They suggest that there are always discrete categories and oversimplify the complex social and structural dynamics that can produce harm in society. In their place, this report tends to use the descriptions people who have been harmed, people who harm. This was not trying to minimize people's experiences or to wash our language or to be soft on crime. But yeah, sort of is. New language. A new language is not to render invisible the substantial harm that violence and other forms of crime does to individuals and communities. Rather, it is an attempt to ensure better personal, social, and policy responses to it. Blah, 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 blah. Personally, I think words such as victims and offenders and muster, those are functional words. Those are descriptors. However which you put your areas in them, it's fine. Now this area here, I was putting this up. This one was, no one is born to offend. That's absolutely correct. No one is actually born to offend. But you know, when I'm reading through this entire document, family, how did you grow up? What was your family situation between pregnancy and 3 years old and between 3 and 16 years old? What was your family structure like? Who were your role models? They bring up so many different elements, but they don't focus on what myself and those of us in the field see. What do we see with young people and adults who are escalating in violence, escalating in antisocial and criminal behavior? Broken home, broken home, broken home, broken home, broken home, no family, no family, no family, no family. It goes on and on and on and on. And in almost every single one of those, no father. No father, no male positive role model, almost every single time. Lots of pages, $620,000 of your money went in there. And, you know, when we look at some of the harmful activities by some people, myself and other people in the field, many of us, we see the families, man. What are the families like growing up? And as you've heard me say before, the trick question, or the answer to the trick question is, in prisons, what is the percentage in New Zealand prisons of prisoners who grew up in a broken home? Well, we don't know, because we don't ask. Overseas asks, we don't. What is the percentage of people who grew up in a broken home or grew up in different family structure who committed suicide? Well, we don't know, because we don't find out. We know ethnicity, income level, job, and what their particular status is at the time. But all of this, colonialism and institutional racism and implicit association bias and any other word, trying to remove everything from it, and they don't look at family. I'm going to go into a rant, so I'll stop myself there. Right, so there is a lot here. Now, I do want to point out just a couple of quick bits. System is failing Māori. The number of Māori in the system is a crisis with disproportionate representation, including as victims. 37% of Māori were victims of crime in 2018. This compares with the New Zealand average of 29%. We heard how enduring effects of colonisation disfranchise and impoverish Māori communities, and how Māori experience worse outcomes than other New Zealanders at every stage of the justice process. Intergenerational effects on whānau families and the communities is severe. The Waitangi Tribunal has highlighted the Crown's failure to live up to its tiriti or Waitangi obligations in criminal justice. Yada, 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 yada. Okay. Why is the Waitangi Tribunal sticking its nose in? Now, they also put a footnote here. They put a footnote there, and they said, so I went to it, and it was stupid. Basically, it was one dude who was saying who was just talking about a lot of the facts and figures behind the Māori representation, crimes and victims. Now, I went to a Just Speak conference because a lot of this is very Just Speakish. Yeah, Just Speak are very strong behind this. Now, I went to a Just Speak conference in 2015, 2016, and I went there, and it was a big circle, and there was heaps of Palangi, or English, white, whatever word you want to use. Heaps of them were there. We were in a big circle, and there was myself and I think maybe about 2 or 3 other brownies, and we were sitting there. And then they said, right, we're going to go in a big circle, and we're going to talk about what's going wrong, why are so many Pasifika and Māori in prison. And so they went around. Oh, the white man, colonization, impoverishment, all the usual tropes that you expect from leftists now. And when it got around to me, I think I may have annoyed them, because I said the reason why there's mostly Māori and Pasifika people in prison is because we commit the most crime. When I said that, no. So I furthered that, and I said, if you really want to understand, you're asking the wrong question. The question you need to be asking is, why do we commit the most crime? And when you're talking about that, that's when you get into the areas of family and growing up in a broken home and no dad or no male role model, broken up family or no family whatsoever. And so you're looking at the family structure in that growing up period of in vitro to 3 and then 3 to 16. That's what you're looking at. Now, in that one, heaps of pretty much all the academics were, no. They were shaking their heads in that very odd way of trying to be dismissive. However, peripheral my eyes, I did see 2 people nodding their heads furiously. One of them was the prison worker, the prison officer, and one of them was the keynote speaker who had actually come out from prison to speak to the group, and he was convicted of murder. He did his time and he came out. Those were the 2 nods, furiously nodding their heads, while all of the academics were going, no, you're wrong, mate. So these are the ones who write the policies. And the politicians that we have in there have got zip idea. They've really got very little idea. The system is racist. Racism is common in New Zealand society. Many people hold negative stereotypes of Māori, Pacific, and other ethnic and cultural groups. What about white people? Oh, sorry. Hey, it's okay to be white, all right? Don't worry. And this is reflected in individual actions that discriminate on the basis of race. We heard numerous examples of institutional racial discrimination in the justice system, particularly towards Māori and Pacific communities. High rates of arrest and imprisonment of Māori reflect systematic discrimination both within justice and the wider community. We also heard from other ethnic groups of a system that harboured deep bias. Okay. Honestly, I've worked with quite a few families. One of the families, the mum or the mum was like always racism, white man's racist. I was like, dude, I know your family, 3 generations all involved with hardcore drug use, hardcore gang life, and not only that, enjoy it. Honestly, sometimes you think, where do you guys get this stuff? Because in actual fact, they're not based off empirical data. There's no law that states if you are brown, then you are going to get more time. In fact, an argument can be made that things like cultural reports that non-Māori and non-Pacifica don't get, actually reduces sentencing. So you want to be careful with that one. System fails to meet diverse needs, and we all knew this was coming up. Many people from Māori, Pacific, refugee, migrant, disabled and LGBTQIA+ communities told us that the justice system does not meet their needs. Okay, apart from the fact of victims, if you've committed a crime and then you're going through the justice system and you feel that they haven't met your need, yeah, no offense, get stuffed. If you've hurt a little child, if you have trafficked in meth, if you brought in so many drugs to hurt and to kill our people, get stuffed. We don't have to meet none of your needs then. Anyway, migrant refugees, communities of colour have expressed their experience of cultural blindness and lack of cultural competency within the system. For many, proceedings are conducted in languages they did not understand and according to rules that are alien to them. What? Okay, so I recall that there was a Chinese guy, kung fu guy, who killed his wife and abandoned his child. Many of you will remember this case. And when they came back, then he was brought back, and of course, he didn't speak. He spoke very, very, very little English, and he had to have a translator and things like that. Now, if someone like that is having difficulty with the blindness of cultural competency, again, he can get stuff too. If you're breaking the laws, that's the whole idea of a justice system, is that it's not supposed to be flexible to what you desire. The system itself, I am a Christian person. If I get snapped for a crime, then I do not expect, and nor should I expect, for prayers to be conducted at the start of every court session, and I should not be expecting for the warden of the prison to say grace every single time that food is delivered. I should not expect that. There is a blindness that should be expected. Code of laws, one law for all. Little or no expect, all. So it carries on with, apparently people should be told lots and lots. Now, here is the one which I have a big issue with. More knowledge of the needs of the rainbow community should also be built into the system, processes, facilities, and culture. So, in terms of the idea or alphabet ideology being pushed upon our system, the issue here, of course, is in the UK, you have transgender women, which is men with a psychological condition who are dealing with that issue. Now, in the UK, they have actually had men being put into women prisons because of that gender identity disorder, and those men have then gone on and had sex with the female prisoners. I mean, At what point does the woke left realize that justice is not supposed to be a rainbow of ideologies coming in to give hugs? It's not supposed to be there. Justice is the idea of a morality that is kept with a consequence if you breach that idea of morality, enforcement of morality. Now, I'm not referring to whether you want to discuss it as secular morality or Christian morality or Buddhist or Taoist morality, but that is what justice is. It is the idea of a moral rightness, and the justice system is the idea of consequence for breaching that moral rightness. That's all it is. Now, if you look through here, I've looked at the values and the justice, and they base a lot of it on UN-based reports. I don't want to call it a report, but ideas. Now, I've only gone through about a few of the pages, and I could speak all day on them, but I've had a look at my system, and it's coming up for 40 minutes. So, it's a long one, I know. I probably failed at keeping it real simple. I do apologize for that, but what I can tell you is this. Some of the most invasive and definitely transformative policies and bills and laws are most definitely coming into your nation. And they are not supportive of a free, and they are not supportive of a family-based nation. New Conservative, our justice policy is pretty simple. 3 stages. If you're in prison, you get 3 stages. First stage, you work. Whatever work means, you work. Second stage is that you get an individualized education plan that can be anywhere from getting your basic numeracy literacy up to some very basic level, all the way to, hey look, if you want to do a forklift license, start the process towards getting tertiary qualifications or something like that. And the third stage, of course, is open prison, where you're able to be working outside, and then you come back to prison, and then you spend the nights and weekends. And the idea of that, of course, is being able to reintegrate into the community much easier now, because of course now they basically get chucked out, a couple of bucks, and then they get left on their own. And the recidivism is real clearly bad. Our policy is also built by those who were and are on the front line. Police officers, youth workers, social workers, the prison officers. We've got quite a few of them, and we're growing in that number actually. So we've got a whole bunch of people who are on the ground, who know what's going on. But this group, headed by a lawyer and mostly populated by academics, this is a really bad transformation that you're going to see if we allow it. 2020 is the most important election that we've had in living memory. Those of you who have seen me in public meetings know why. But we must protect New Zealand. And it's getting to that point where New Zealand itself is in danger of becoming a scary place to live, covered over with words that look kind, look open, look honest, look transparent, but incredibly insidious policies underneath. So we're looking forward to a great year. We can't wait to get into it. God bless you. God bless this great nation of New Zealand.